Okay, welcome everyone. So we will start with looking at the branches that we created and the PRs. So the first one was related to displaying the items in the list, and the second one was related to collaboration. So let's start with issue number one, which is Laura and let me check. Laura and Tuba. Yeah, you can go ahead, share your screen, and do the demo.
Okay, I have everything set up, so I can do the demo if you want.
Sure.
All right. It says I can't share my screen.
Let me do that. Let me give you the permissions. Yeah. Can you try again?
Okay, there we go. This one and okay. I'm gonna have to just, oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, well, let me share. All right, fine. I can't share both screens at the same time for some reason. But anyway, this is the code that we wrote right here. Just those two lines. This was a very simple PR. Basically, all it is just map the item name so that it can be shown on the list items. We use the index for the key as discussed. And the result, hold on one second. Result is this here. And as you can see, there is no console warning here because we added the keys. We were having that previously, but it's gone now. And that's really it.
Yeah, good job. Love the PR. And there are a couple of things we learned from this PR. So we'll discuss each one of them. The first thing we learned about is when you're doing collaborative coding and you want every author to receive credit for the commit in GitHub or GitLab, then you can add them as co-author in the commit message, and then they will show up in the commit as multiple authors, which is something that Laura did. And I assume that after modifying the commit message, you had to do a force push. Did you, Laura?
Yeah. I amended the commit and then I force pushed it.
Okay, so that's another thing we learned, that whenever we have to do that, we should try not to push before doing that, and if we do, we'll have to force push, which is generally considered a bad practice in larger PRs because that can sometimes cause issues. But yeah, and then finally we learned about the solution that Laura proposed. Can we just destructure the item object to send all the props to the component? We can do that, but there are a couple of points that we discussed in the issue comment, which I think can help everyone. And finally, the key attribute that is a requirement of React and should not be dismissed, as Shah mentioned. And Tuba did a great job doing that on time. So that's great. Let's go ahead to the demo by Shah and Shagun. So Shahzeb and Shagun both have the names of the two of them starts with Shah. You can go ahead and demo.
It's okay.
So I can start if Shagun here.
Shagun, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Shagun, if you want to do the demo, you can do. Otherwise, I will start.
Okay, I'll do. So here is the code. First of all, we just imported the nav link from React Router DOM, and we changed the nav links, and along with that, we added the links to the respective pages, and at last you can see the URL changes whenever we click on the three links.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that also looks good. Anything to add, Shah?
Yeah, nothing much to add. We basically created a branch to do this, and we had some problems in managing how to create a branch on Shogun's side. So we learned something about resetting our changes and then starting from scratch. So after that, basically, we just created changes and then submitted to the other side and then pulled it. So it was a learning experience regarding how to work with Git in a collaborative environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice to hear. Nice to hear from you, Shah. Another thing I would like to add is the general convention for commit messages is verb object, where we write something like add file name, things like that. The same convention need not be followed for the pull request title. Usually, the pull request title should be semantically representing what the overview of it is, and also as I noticed, there are a few keywords in GitHub that you can use to link the issue to the PR. But even if you don't do that, on the right side of the PR, there's an option to link an issue. Wait, I can share my screen and show it to you. Yeah. So we are looking at Shah's PR, and here let's do something to make the title more semantically correct. So something like this would be more representative of what changes have been done in the PR. And you have already added the keyword here, which will automatically link the issue. If not, you can go here and select the issue manually. So yeah, that's good. Let's go ahead and merge both the PRs. I think we have sufficient reviews to do that.
Also, I think Shagun didn't pull the latest changes which Shah
Yeah,
did.
yeah. Yeah, she did not. She did not. I also noticed that because the to-do was still there when she shared her screen. So can you share your screen again, Shagun? We can help you out with that.
Yeah, okay.
There are many ways to do this. You can use Git, you can not use Git. So in the bottom left, you see the branch name SASM React links in the bottom left of your screen.
Mm-hmm.
Next to the branch name, we have a refresh icon. Do you see it? Yeah,
Yeah.
you press that. You can, yeah, okay. Um, okay, so the remote is,
Can't find remote.
yeah, you can show the output. We'll have a look at it. Okay,
You
let
can switch to main and then try to pull.
Sorry.
You can switch the branch to main and then try to pull.
yeah, you can click
Okay.
on the branch name and it will allow you to switch. Oh, okay. I wonder why that did not work. I think I understand why that did not work. That means that the branch that you were on was not tracking the remote branch, and that happens when you create the branch separately and you don't connect it to the origin. There are ways to track branches separately, but it's recommended that when you create the branch, you first attach it to a remote branch in the remote repository. We will talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
no problem. So thank you very much, Shagun. You can Stop
Okay.
sharing the screen now. Yeah. So today's learning module is going to be Git itself, and there's not a lot that we are going to talk about. Most of it you already know, but we'll try to make it helpful for everyone, and we'll talk about things that might help many people developing collaboratively. So here's the module. Let's talk about Git itself. So um, okay, these are the things that we'll talk about. These are some of the very basic things in Git. Checking out new branches, adding changes to the staging area, committing them, pushing them to the remote, pulling changes from the remote, and making pull requests, which is not related to Git, but is a common tool that's used for repository management tools like GitHub. Okay, we'll first learn about some terminologies that are used under Git. The first term is repository, which is essentially the collection of files and its history along with other branches and a few other things like stashes and tags. The remote is an online storage where the repository is centralized, and that is where all the collaboration happens. The most popular one here is GitHub, but there are also tools, also platforms like Bitbucket and also GitLab that are used by people. Some organizations like to self-host as well. We have facilities for those in AWS and GCP. And the main branch is the source of truth. It used to be master, but it has been changed to main recently. The commit, so any change that has been applied to the entire repository is known as a commit. The commits are organized within different branches, and they may or may not be common within different branches. We'll look at a diagram soon to have more clarity over it. And finally, a pull request is a more strategic manner of merging code from one branch to another. Back then, when GitHub did not used to exist, we used to do that using mailing lists and manual testing in Git repositories. But now that we have GitHub, we can preview the file changes graphically, like even in these PRs. I can give you an example. You can go here and you can see the differences. So right now there's only one file that has been modified, but if there were lots of files and lots of modifications across commits, looking at the difference in the command line would not have been very pleasing to the eyes. So that's one convenience we have now. And finally, there's one more term that's not mentioned here. It's called the diff, which essentially represents the difference between one branch and another, or one commit, one state of the repository and another. So let me ask a question here. How many of you know how Git was created? Why Git was created and when it was created? Is anyone aware? Okay. So, fun fact, Git was created by the creator of Linux, Linus Torvalds, and the only reason he created Git was so that people could contribute to Linux. So when he made Linux and made it public, he wanted to get collaborative contributions to Linux, and there was no existing tool for that. Back then, Linus used to consider Linux a personal project, so to manage one personal project of his, he made another personal project called Git, and both of his personal projects have grown today to serve thousands of people, thousands, lakhs, crores of people worldwide. Almost all the infrastructure we have on the internet runs on top of Linux, including our Android devices, which also run on the Linux kernel. And Git has now grown to be the most used version control system, and even Windows code base has been shifted to using Git now. Yeah, Raj, were you saying something?
No, I was saying that there is a book on Linus Torvalds. I forgot the name. Let me remember that. One can read it. How he built the Linux itself when he was in college.
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting story. We can definitely talk about it. I also heard a lot about it, and It's pretty inspiring. That matches with, that aligns with the story of many people who do startups today. But yeah, so we are looking at an example here. So this is supposed to be the final state of the repository, and these two changes have been done in a separate branch. And this is how it graphically looks. And this is a demonstration that you can have a look at. So as you notice here, the first thing we do is create a branch from this commit. If we want to create a branch from this commit, we do a few other things. We'll talk about the commands, and that's when we'll get to them. And we'll make these changes. And there may be other changes in the main branch during that time as well. And when we finally merge it, yeah, as you can see, there's a new change here. When we finally merge it, these commits can either come after this commit or they can go down just like this. This depends on your merging algorithm. There are a few that you don't need to learn about, but you need to be aware about if you're working with large code bases. You will most probably not come across that situation while working with the current project, but that's something that's worth knowing. All right, we'll move on to commands, which are the nightmare of every developer, because that is the exact reason why tools like VS Code and other graphical Git tools were created, because people gave up on learning every single command, but it's still worth knowing about all of them. The first command that we'll talk about is git checkout, which is mostly used to create a new branch, but its primary purpose is to switch to a different branch. So before Shagun ran the git switch command, I had no idea that git switch existed. What I used to use before that was git checkout. I think switch makes more
Checkout.
yeah, checkout itself. So if a branch exists, we can use git checkout to switch to that branch in the current repository. What else can we use checkout for? We can use checkout to switch to a different commit as well. So if you have the commit ID of any past commit, either in the current branch or in any other branch that exists on the local machine, you can use get checkout to get into that commit in a detached mode. So that situation is called a detached mode because you can't add or commit anything when you are in that detached mode. To do that, you'll need to go back to the one of the branches. Why do we go to a detached mode? I'll try to explain to you. So git checkout -b and then the name of the branch. What this does essentially is creates this branch and then switches to it. So it's two commands combined into one. Git branch name, which will create the branch, and git checkout branch name, which will move to that, switch to that branch. So git checkout -b and branch name simply creates the branch and switches to it in one instance. If we want, so the example that I gave previously, if I wanted to create the branch from this commit, I will first check out this commit and get into detached mode, and then I will create a branch from here, either using get checkout -b or get branch, and then the branch will be created from this commit instead of this commit. So that's something interesting and useful. Git add. So git add is used to add files or changes to the staging area. And the staging area is the list of changes that is added to a commit when we commit. And git add -A is used to stage all the files for the commit. Most of the time we use git add dot, but how is it different from git add -A? Git add dot adds files only in the current working directory, and git add -A adds all the files in the repository. How that is different is if our current working directory is a subdirectory of the repository and we run git add dot, that will not add any changes from the parent directory. So this will add all changes from all directories in the repository, and then we can commit them. Okay, the most important command of all, git commit, which allows us to make a commit. Depending on what the default editor in the machine is, git commit allows us to write a message for the commit, which can be multi-line. And the co-authored by message that Laura and Tuba did is supposed to made in one of the last lines of the commit. and you need to be very careful about the spellings. But if you use just git commit, it opens up a temporary file in the default editor that allows you to write the commit message. And you can do that especially if you have multiple lines in the commit. Okay, git commit -m allows you to write the commit message within the commit command, and it's an inline message, so it can mostly not be multi-line, but if you're using a shell like PowerShell, then you can do multiple lines as well. That's something I'll leave you to explore. -a stages any changes in previously tracked files to the commit. What that means is, if that file was not committed before, it will not be staged. And if it was already committed and there are any changes to the file, you can either git add the file and then commit, or you can simply do git commit -a, and that will automatically add those changes for those files and then commit it. You can combine multiple flags like this. So I sometimes do ASM for signing off and adding tracked changes and adding an inline message as well. So you can use -a and then m if you also want to include an inline message. There's something in the chat. Oh, that's the book that Raj has shared. I'll copy the link and also put it in the Slack once we're done with the learning module. Git push. Git push is what we use to update the remote or one of the remotes with our changes. So when we work on open source software, we tend to have multiple remotes. One of them is our fork and the other one is the primary repository. In our case, we have just one repository that we're working with, and -u is essentially what we use to connect the local repository to track this remote repository. So that's what I think Shagun needs to do. This is one of the ways to add tracking to a local repository. You can do git push -u and the name of the remote and then the name of the branch. Once you have added tracking for any remote repository to a local repository, you can simply do git push from then onwards. There is a setting in the new version of Git, the one that has recently come out, that does not require you to do even this. And that setting is something that I will share in the Slack after this learning module. And the conventional name of the only primary remote is origin. And the reason behind that is, historically, that's how we have referred to as remote repositories, because whenever we clone from a repository, that remote is known as origin. All right, so how do we get the latest changes? So bringing the latest changes to the local repository comprises two steps. First of all, moving to the branch that is tracking the remote repository. Second, fetching the updates from the remote to the local repository. And finally, merging or committing those changes to the local repository. So these three steps are usually summarized by this one command called git pull. Usually we are in the branch, which is already tracking the remote branch where the changes are. And when we do git pull, it is just a small way of saying do a git fetch and a git merge and a git commit. So this fetches the changes from the remote and then merges those changes into the current working repository. If you want to fetch the changes but not merge them, you can do a git fetch. And that is again something that I would leave you to learn about. There's plenty of documentation about it. Pull requests. So pull requests are entirely a GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket thing and are not related to Git. But these remind us of the experience that we used to have before GitHub existed and how this makes things much better for us. The terminology pull request means that we want to pull changes from our feature branch to the main branch, but we want it to be a request so that people review it and then finally approve it so that branch is merged. We can use pull requests to graphically view changes, and we can also do things like these. So let me let me show this to you. So there's a workflow in the repository that we are in that deploys the changes in any branch to a custom URL so that we can preview it. I don't know how good this workflow is, but this also reminds us that we can do things like these to simplify reviewing um, and accelerate the code review process. Code review is another thing that Raj will talk about during the office hours. And platforms like Vercel already do this for their web applications by default. All right, moving back to the presentation. Okay, so conflicts, merge conflicts. These are the other nightmare that developers have, which is when multiple changes to the same file from different branches need to be merged. So let's say we are creating a pull request from a feature branch to the main branch, and the same file was modified in both the branches. In situations like these, Git does not like to do the decision making, and it likes to give the control to the developer instead, which means we make the decision about which change to keep. So if you can look at the screenshot here, it gives you three options: accept the current change, which is the one in your feature branch, incoming change, which is the main branch, and both changes, which means Git will automatically try to merge both of the changes. And neither of them always resolve the problem that we have, which means sometimes you might have to manually add or remove changes to make sure everything fits in. And it's going to be okay, thankfully, because we have graphical tools now. And earlier it used to be all command line where we had to manually modify the file, and we used to have these arrows indicating the changes and these equal signs, which has been replaced by beautiful interfaces. In fact, Visual Studio Code had a recent update where we have a three-way merge editor, which makes the task even more developer friendly. And there is a guide here. I will share the presentation with you so that you can access this. But we are always available here to help you out. So definitely let us know if you ever face any conflicts. Finally, there are a few resources here that you can access to, but the most important resource, as always, is your team, which includes us and your fellow developers, because we learn more from each other than we do from documentation. I mean, since the starting of the weekly sync, we learned a lot from the PRs themselves that even I did not know earlier. So this has been a really good experience, and keep this in mind. I'll share the slides with you. And yeah, I think that's it for the presentation for the learning module. I'll create a feedback form and a remote work assessment, because you're all working and collaborating remotely, and we want you to be able to do that in a healthy manner. And yeah, that's it for the learning module. We will proceed now to go ahead and assign new issues to the new sets of teams. So I think Krati will do that today. Krati, you can go ahead and share your screen now.
Yeah, sure. Just a minute. All right. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is.
All right. So this week we have two new issues, issue number 3 and issue number 4. So I'll go one by one and summarize the issues to you all. And after that, we can see if anyone has any specific preferences to any particular issue, and then we can assign it to them. All right. So the third issue, as it says, is we have to set up the shopping list so that they can track the purchased items. Okay. So as you all have already created a shopping list and which is displaying the items on the UI. So what you have to do now is to generate a unique token. every item on the shopping list is associated with a specific token, which is a three-lettered word. Then the next task is to save that token to the local storage. And lastly, you have to display to the user in the list view. All right. So we already have the dependency to the project added to the repo. So the acceptance criteria is there should be a specific button which can allow to create a new list. Upon clicking on the button, it should save that token to the local storage. Using this function, it is already available to us. You just have to import that function from the shopping list utils. And once you generate the token and display it to the UI, that's it. It should look similar to this wireframe. Just a second. Okay. So there's this wireframe that is provided to you all, and once you view it, it should look similar to that. All right. So our second issue is okay, so we have to allow the user to add new items to the shopping list so they can record their purchases. So there should be three choices for that. So one of them is soon, which corresponds to 7 days. The second one is kind of soon, that corresponds to 14 days period. And lastly, the third one is not soon, that corresponds to a 30-day time period. So once the user gives the input, there should be certain labels associated with it so that the user can choose what is the like time preference of that particular item, and then the user has to submit that form. And once the user submits the form, it should be added to the like it should be added according to the labels. The list should be displayed according to the labels, like the items which are supposed to be purchased soon, they should have a specific label around it. Yeah, so that's it. So does anyone have any particular preference to which issue they want to work to? Anyone?
You can mention it in the chat if you want to, if you have multiple preferences.
I don't mind either.
All right, so let's assign. So I'll assign the issues to both the teams for this week, and yeah.
Okay. Depending on the teams that are created for the pairs that are created for this week, we'll do the assignment within the next hour, and you can have a look at the issue that you're assigned so that you can start working on it from tomorrow. And we'll let you know about the office hours. I think we're already close to the time and Laura needs to leave. My battery is also getting low. So anyway, let's end the first weekly sync today. It was really nice seeing you all this Saturday. And that was my notification tune. Sorry about that. I'll see you all again next week, and good luck working on the issues that you're assigned. See you. Bye.
See you. Bye bye.